Well, education has once again become a political football in the Delhi versus Centre power tussle. In the Vidhan Sabha, Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia hit out at the centre, saying 6 lakh students' future is being played with. How so? He said that the centre is repeatedly transferring senior officials in the higher and technical education departments within intervals of 2 to 3 months. Admissions are going on in Delhi, but the post of the Director of Higher Education is vacant for 22 days now. In another grave charge, he said that LG VK Saxena is using the Services Department to stall the works of the AAP government in the national capital. So how many officers have been changed in the recent past? Now, according to AAP MLA Saurabh Bharadwaj, at least 9 principal secretaries and 7 directors of the Technical Education Department were transferred in intervals of 1 to 6 months. Now, before we explain the potential impact on students, let us first decode the complex power distribution. Now, the national capital of territory of Delhi enjoys a special status in that until 2015, the Delhi government took decisions on postings and transfers. This was changed in 2015, when the centre, through a notification, empowered the LG to decide on the same. Now, the matter reached the Delhi High Court, where the state government's plea was dismissed, and Kejriwal government later knocked the doors of the Supreme Court. Now, in 2019, there was a split verdict by a 2-judge bench, and finally, in May this year, the top court listed the matter for hearing by a 5-judge bench. But in the interim, it is the LG that calls the shots. The case is sub judice. The Delhi government hopes for the top court to strike down centre's earlier decision, which they say was unconstitutional. So what's on the line here? And how does this alleged instability impact education? To understand this, let's first look at what the role of an education department head is. He or she is responsible for the education sector in the state, is actively involved in policy and planning, and is in charge of improving the quality of education. Now, with top officials constantly changing, this could mean that every new boss would take time to understand the status of operations. And that's how, according to the Delhi government, the centre is playing with the students' future. Because here we're talking about higher and skill education sectors that need continued upskilling. So how far is operation and policy execution impacted with repeated changes in posts that are responsible to design them? How does instability impact education? And what can the centre and the Delhi government collectively do to ensure quality of education is not compromised with? To discuss this, I'm joined by Furqan Qamar, former advisor in education at the Planning Commission of India. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us this evening. I'll come to you in a minute, but first let's play out those allegations by Deputy CM Sisodia there.
अब ये बताओ, केंद्र सरकार हर 2 महीने बाद, 3 महीने बाद, 4 महीने बाद ये स्किल एजुकेशन, टेक्निकल एजुकेशन के, हायर एजुकेशन के डायरेक्टर्स को म्यूजिकल चेयर क्यों खिला रही है? या तो आपको समझ नहीं है कि एजुकेशन का क्या इंपॉर्टेंस है। यार, एक आदमी को किसी ने, हो सकता है आपकी बात ना सुनी हो, हटा दिया हो, मानते हैं कि जी आपकी कोई सर्विस आपके पास है, ट्रांसफर पोस्टिंग अभी आपके पास दे रखी है, मानते हैं कि किसी अधिकारी ने ना सुनी हो, आपको गुस्सा आया हो, सुबह तक आपने हटा दिया उसको, लेकिन हर 3 महीने बाद अधिकारी बदल रहे हो यार। हर 3 महीने बाद किसी को पत्ते की तरह फेंट फेंट कर उठा देते हो। क्या कर रहे हो? स्किल एजुकेशन, हायर एजुकेशन किसी भी देश को रोजगार, उसकी नौजवानों को संभालने की एजुकेशन होती है। जहां स्कूल एजुकेशन उस देश के बच्चों को संभालती है, नौजवानों को संभालने का काम स्कूल एजुकेशन, हायर एजुकेशन, टेक्निकल एजुकेशन में किया जाता है। आप इस देश के नौजवानों के साथ खेल रहे हो, उनके भविष्य के साथ खेल रहे हो। 2 महीने में एक डायरेक्टर बदल दिया, 3 महीने में एक डायरेक्टर बदल दिया, फिर 3 महीने में एक डायरेक्टर बदल दिया, फिर 1 साल में एक डायरेक्टर बदल दिया, फिर 11 महीने में एक डायरेक्टर बदल दिया, फिर 10 महीने में एक डायरेक्टर बदल दिया। 10 दिन से दिल्ली के पास में ना हायर एजुकेशन का डायरेक्टर है, ना टेक्निकल एजुकेशन का डायरेक्टर है। यूनिवर्सिटीज और कॉलेजेस में एडमिशन का टाइम चल रहा है, वहां पर रजिस्ट्रार नहीं है। लोग पूछ रहे हैं भाई एडमिशन कैसे होंगे? कहीं ना कोई लोचा है। ITIs में एडमिशन हो रहे हैं, स्किल सेंटर्स में एडमिशन होने हैं, डायरेक्टर ही नहीं है।
Mr. Qamar, my first question to you, how rational is the Delhi government's allegations here? They say about 6 lakh students' future is at stake because the centre is time and again changing officials in the education department. In a sense, does repeated transfers of top officials actually translate into instability as claimed by Mr. Sisodia?
Let me say that India is a federation of states, and harmonious relationship between the state and the center is extremely important. We do recognize that there are issues with regard to the power of the state government as far as Delhi is concerned. Matter is sub judice, and therefore I cannot say much about the merit of those things. But it is a fact that any position of importance remaining vacant over a fairly long period of time or frequent changes in the person who holds that position creates uncertainty and therefore affects the working and the performance of the department and the sector that this person has been dealing with. So to that extent, I fully agree with the Deputy Chief Minister of Delhi and the Education Minister of Delhi. Particularly at the moment, higher education, skilling, education itself is passing through a phase where there are a number of changes that are being affected from the top. National education policy is being implemented. Its text is easier to read. Its implementation is far more difficult. So you need people who could apply their mind in a sustained manner over a period of time to arrive at a policy decisions, to arrive at the difficulties and find the solutions to those problems. And therefore, any vacancies in any office, and education, higher education, skilling, technical education, they are all very, very important office. I mean, one thing is really very strange. Delhi is, of course, having a peculiar status. I think the slogan has been the cooperative federalism, but we are seeing that in the area of education, many states are having issues and concerns with regard to various dimensions of the policy, etc. Of course, here the issue is different. So to answer your question very precisely, that yes, non-availability of officers, frequent changes in the officers and the staff very adversely affects decision-making, delays decision-making, and in fact, vitiate the whole process. And at this critical juncture, when the policy is being affected, and particularly in a very short-term perspective, when the admission, etc., are on, I think it needs to be taken on priority. Without going into the who has the power or who doesn't, right. I'm not a person of law, but I would still say that I think there are certain areas which are too important: education, internal security, health, external security, where the politics should be kept away and the decisions should be taken in the best interest of the people. So people of Delhi are people of India. And if there is any lost cost to them, it is a lost cost to the people of the country. And therefore, I think they should work in tandem in this regard.
So I was coming to the next point there when you spoke about admissions process being ongoing right now. The AAP here has also said that the post of the Director of Higher Education is vacant for about 22 days now. Is this uncommon? And what does it mean to leave a post of this level vacant during the crucial admissions process?
No, I would say that it is not very uncommon. Even in the full-fledged states, you find that certain positions remain vacant either for want of officer or for want of the decisions as to who is to be placed. So 22 days as such doesn't seem to be a very long period of time, but yes, it's a very crucial juncture. The Delhi University now has many, Delhi government has now many state universities. Registrars in those universities do play an important role. Director Higher Education plays an important role in the colleges of that are owned and funded by the Delhi government. So yes, it does affect, and this issue needs to be addressed. Once you find a person that who needs to be placed either by the LG or in mutual consultation with the government and the LG, then ensure that the person stays in the job, unless, of course, he does something which does not behave the positions and has to be changed. But I think the frequent changes need to be avoided and the persons in all positions need to be in place.
So important point there that these frequent changes definitely need to be avoided. Mr. Qamar, then do you think it's justified for Sisodia to say that colleges do not have registrars and because of that children and parents are struggling to get information? He's invariably blaming repeated transfers for lack of registrars. Do you think this claim is justified or is Sisodia stretching it a bit too far?
No, I think in case of universities, I do not have specific data. I'm taking his statement on the face value when he says that universities do not have registrar. I specifically do not know that how many of the Delhi universities do not have a registrar. Of course, the registrar is very important functionary, and if this position is vacant or filled up on ad hoc basis and is changed frequently, then it does affect the functioning of the university. I think this blame game has been going on between the Delhi government, the elected government, and also the center because of the peculiarities of the Delhi. I think that has to be resolved at the earliest as possible. I think many things could be discussed, debated, resolved across the table by talking to each other, by understanding each other's concerns, so long as we are able to keep the politics away from those discussions. And I think that is what both the parties should do.
Keep politics away and bring negotiations to the table. And that brings me to my final question, sir. At the end of the day, we are talking about education, a sector that needs premium quality and that cannot be compromised with. So how can, according to you, the Delhi government and the centre collectively work to ensure premium quality in the sector?
I mean, of course, about school education, there have been claims by Delhi government that they have improved a lot. They have made investment in physical facilities and infrastructure. They also claim that large number of students migrated from the private schools to government schools. Some people might counter that, okay, that happened because of the corona, loss of income, and people could not afford private fees. But I think by and large, people generally agree that they are focusing on improving the quality of the school education. Whether it is happening at a select level or they are upscaling it, I think that need to be seen and you need to give some time to them. But yes, their focus is on education because they are allocating a significant part of their budget on the education sector. Lately, we have seen that in Delhi, many universities have come up and some of them are unique in their own sense. So like this National Skill University or earlier the Pharmaceutical University or a few other universities on social sector. So these are all initiatives that were needed in Delhi to accommodate and to provide for quality education in colleges. There are many things. Decisions at the level of the state government are important. How much priority the state governments and the governments in general give to education sector, they play a very important role. Funding plays a very important role. Recruitment and selections and appointment and retention of the teachers, quality teachers plays a very important role. Timely disbursement of salary and sustaining the motivations of teachers, they are all important. And I think all of these things require pushing up files, taking decisions, having deliberations, organizing meetings, having discussions. And from all of those points, it's extremely important that these positions are filled up with people who are of competence, who are of caliber, and they are not changed frequently.
Right. So the bottom line here is that leaving even one of these posts vacant could be risky, could potentially jeopardize the students studying at that particular college, as every post does matter. And these are top officials we're talking about, principal secretaries, directors. They are the ones call the shots. They're the ones who design the policies and are also responsible to ensure so that, you know, for the proper execution of this policy. Well, on that note, I'll have to wrap this discussion up. Thank you so much, Mr. Qamar, for sparing your time and sharing your inputs on this very crucial topic.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, while we're talking about the blame game between the centre and the Delhi government, here's another angle to it. Now, it's Delhi government versus centre once again. On day 2 of Delhi's monsoon session, Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal took on the centre over a range of issues, from MCD elections to his deputy's charge of education officers being constantly transferred, to the salaries to the civic body officials. Kejriwal made a fiery speech on the floor of the House. The Aam Aadmi Party government has accused the BJP-led centre of using force and hooliganism in not allowing MCD elections, also going on to say that they will approach the court to get the polls conducted on time. Listening.
केजरीवाल से नफरत करते करते तुम लोग देश से नफरत कर बैठे। केजरीवाल आएगा जाएगा, केजरीवाल इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है, लेकिन अगर आप लोग इस देश में चुनाव हराना खत्म कर दोगे, संविधान के चीथड़े कर दोगे, जनतंत्र को खत्म कर दोगे, तो ये देश नहीं बचेगा। तो ये जबरदस्ती साबित करना चाहते हैं, नहीं ये भी चोर है, हमारे जैसे ही हैं, ये जैसे हमें वैसे ही हैं। तो ये जबरदस्ती करना चाहते हैं। सत्येंद्र जैन को पकड़ लिया, बताओ, एक पैसे का भ्रष्टाचार साबित नहीं कर पा रहे। तुम्हारे अभी आए थे बीजेपी के, वो गुजरात से आए थे, गुजरात वाले आए थे देखने, गुजरात वाले, गुजरात की एक 22 नेताओं की, बड़े बड़े नेताओं के, पूर्व शिक्षा मंत्री फलाना ढिमका, सारे बड़े बड़े नेता आए थे देखने गुजरात के। बोले हम पोल खोल के आएंगे। हमने स्वागत किया उनका, और स्वागत करके हमने कहा भाई आओ देखो। वो देख के आए खुद ही, हम नहीं गए उनके साथ, खुद ही देख के आए। फिर उन्होंने कहा 3 बजे आज प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस है, प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस करेंगे। फिर प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस भी नहीं की। फिर बोले ना यहाँ नहीं करेंगे, गुजरात जाके करेंगे। गुजरात जाके भी नहीं करी प्रेस को, कुछ मिला ही नहीं उनको, कोई कमी नहीं मिली।